Okay guys, so this is gonna be super interesting. This is gonna be a fire video. I have not watched any of this yet, but Dr. Phil is going to be doing a ride-along with the NYPD and talking to them, and I have a feeling that the radical left is not going to be too happy about this video because they're going to be heavily exposed. This video came out literally 8 minutes ago. As you can see, it only has like 30 likes because it came out 8 minutes ago. I'm a huge fan of what he's been doing recently, going to Israel, talking to people like the families of hostages, and bringing light to topics that the mainstream media, including his old network, would not have allowed him to do because it goes against the left-wing narrative. We're pushing back, we're taking back the culture, and we're doing it using morality, logic, and reason and rationality. I'm very excited for this. In fact, I'm gonna get some coffee. I'll be right back. Actually, you know what, guys? I've decided to get some Red Bull. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of psychological operation to demonize Dr. Phil. I don't know if it'll be the classic sexual assault claims. That'd be kind of hard considering he's been married for like 40 years or whatever, but you have no idea what the Matrix is capable of. Let's get going.
What do you think when you hear officers being demonized on the news?
We took it upon ourselves to push back. We're going to protect our cops.
Let's get to that location now.
Gotcha.
Most of the police in New York are great people, almost all of them, because they inherently, if you're going to serve your community, put your life on the line for order, what you're saying is, I'm willing to undergo personal sacrifice for morality. Leftists will never do that. So this is the reason why most people who serve in the police force, who are firefighters, who are in the military, tend not to be liberals. Because liberalism has been co-opted by the postmodern neo-Marxist critique of society, which says there's no better and worse ways of interpreting the world, including morality.
We took it upon ourselves to push back. We're going to protect our cops.
Let's get to that location now.
Got shots fired, you make an apprehension. What's likely to happen to him?
By the time the cop finishes the paperwork, the guy will be walking out to jail.
What? Shots fired and the guy gets let out of jail like that? Is it really that bad in New York? It's bad here in Los Angeles, but is it really that bad? Someone kills someone, gets let out of jail?
Murder of an NYPD officer on the job. The 31-year-old father was shot and killed.
You guys all worked with and knew Officer Dillard. Were you there that day?
Wow, this is gonna be epic. I'm such a pro Dr. Phil guy.
Thousands gathered to say their final goodbyes to Officer Jonathan Dillard today. The 31-year-old father was shot and killed during a traffic stop this week.
Rest in peace. Father rest his soul.
Sadness and sorrow overtook the Sunshine as his widow, Stephanie, held their 1-year-old son, Ryan, closely during a moving eulogy. Her
At least the child will know that he was a hero, right?
heartbreak raw.
With every hug that I've received, I just picture each one is from Jonathan.
Calling him her best friend, closest confidant, the man whose family
It's really sad.
always came first.
He was a fierce protector of everyone around him. He spoke his mind and wasn't afraid.
And as fierce as he was, his heart would melt for his son.
He was so proud of Ryan. Every time he did something new, it was like an explosion of joy from both of us.
You guys all worked with and knew Officer Dillard.
Props to Dr. Phil for going where the mainstream media does not want you to go.
What can you tell me about him?
He was, very selfless. He would go out of his way to help you with anything. He would be the first to volunteer for something that somebody else might not want to do. Jokester, always joking around. And it's crazy, because he's married, I'm not. And the last advice he gave me was actually relationship advice. Unfortunately passed away and wasn't able to know the outcome of, that advice that he gave.
Were you there that day?
Yeah, unfortunately.
We have to acknowledge that Dr. Phil wanted to do this at his previous network, but wasn't able to. And this is far more impactful. This is far more meaningful. And I think that it exposes the shift going on where people are recognizing it. I've recognized this because my entire life is wrapped up in the internet. And as I've cared about learning, I've just been ultra involved in synthesizing information from my computer. But over the next decade, I think people are going to start recognizing that the TV is just basically a portal for Netflix. It's nothing. It's not important. It is nothing compared to what the internet has to offer. It's basically a total joke. I was talking to some older family members about this, but people from my generation, when we see a TV, we just think screen for Netflix or screen for HBO, whatever. The thought of watching TV channels doesn't even cross our mind, and the fact that Dr. Phil is now providing more meaningful content exposing the depravities of the left, exposing the degeneracy of moral relativism. It's bringing, I think, a massive audience of older people to the internet so that they can start that process of realizing exactly what is offered on YouTube and X for that matter.
Just couldn't stop. He loved the job. He loved what he did. He loved just being out there and doing his thing. You know, just you want to get the guns off the street. You want to get the real bad guys off the street. Not anything small time. And that was his thing. He just loved it. And I was very impressed with his motivation.
Who else is doing this thing down with the police? No one from the corporate media, from the mainstream, lamestream media has done this. I haven't seen it ever. Sitting down with police officers, asking them what they think. Oh no, their opinions don't matter because they're the victimizer class. They're the oppressors. The radical left's regime on counterfeit morality is crumbling.
Or something, and give yourself a chance to balance out. You know, it truly is a brotherhood. You find strength in each other. And don't listen to the loudmouth naysayers, because we need you.
So the Bronx commander just called us before and said they're having some issues up here tonight.
What's going on?
When you were talking with the guys in the
Bro,
4-6...
it's so cool to see Dr. Phil in the police car. The media would never do this, dude. They would never do this.
precinct where we're going now.
Because it wouldn't fit the narrative. They couldn't control what would happen. Oh my gosh, the perpetrator is black. Unacceptable.
Where they're seeing a little uptick in shots fired, smoke shop robberies. They just took another shots fired. We actually have the video of the incident. We have the car we're looking for, it's a black four-door sedan, temporary tags, ghost vehicles. These guys,
Those cars are a problem for us.
they print them out at home on the internet, these fake temporary plates, and they put them on their cars. So, number one, to avoid detection, not paying their fare, and they commit robberies, shootings, homicides with these vehicles. It's hard for us to identify them because they have paper plates on it.
It goes without saying that New York is on the decline, and I don't actually expect it to recover. You know, Nashville, Austin, Florida, Miami, these areas are the future for the next 2 decades minimum.
Are they stolen cars?
Some of them are. Some of them are just unregistered. And you're gonna see, if we're out long enough, you will see there will be a vehicle that will take off with us. We are using technology to make apprehensions. What do I mean by technology? We have what's called Star Chase, where the officers have a handheld device, like a handheld gun, and they can shoot it out the window. So it shoots a projectile in the back of the car, the adhesive, and sticks on it. And then out with the center that you've seen, our joint operations center can track that vehicle throughout the whole city. Nobody stops in the city, really, because there's no consequences.
What's likely to happen?
Whoa, that's crazy. Did you hear what he just said? No one stops. So when you conduct a traffic stop, no one stops? That's ridiculous.
If there is a incident that occurs.
Dude, New York is actually a manifestation of the leftist instinct for tyranny realized.
Say here, you've got shots fired, car with phony tags, and you make an apprehension, and you take the individual down and book them. What's likely to happen to them these days versus 10, 20 years ago?
By the time the cop finishes the paperwork, the guy will be walking out the jail, walking out of the courts.
It depends
Bro, what?
on their record. I'll give you a staggering statistic right now. We had a record number of
This is the chief of police.
stolen cars last year in New York City. Right now, we had a record number of stolen cars last year in New York City. It's probably a number one crime, stolen cars,
Stolen cars, number one crime.
which was rare. Stolen cars in New York City. And we made a record number of arrests. And only 2% of those arrests resulted in a conviction. So,
Dude, what is that? What is that, though? Are you kidding? You arrest somebody who's confirmed for stealing a vehicle. Only 2% get prosecuted? New York, okay, the leftist ideology is overtly opposed to order. You got to understand this. You need to understand why. Order indicates, it mandates an individual identity because in order to take accountability for your actions, you have to be an individual first. But Marxism, the ideology of the left, says that your individual identity comes secondary to your group membership because it is your group membership which gives virtue and status to you. And this is terrible because it replaces the necessity to think, it replaces the necessity to speak truthfully and be honest. This is the reason why leftists are rejecting. This is the reason why in the last 10 years, 8 to 10 years, we've seen free speech become a right-wing issue, because the left has rejected the notion of individuals speaking freely, using logic, reason, and rationality to make sense of ideas. Because to a leftist, to a Marxist, the only thing that determines the validity of an idea is whether or not the ideology says that it's true. This is the reason why you have the left embodying incoherent positions daily, and people say, is this a psyop? Is this just stupidity? It's actually an overt war with reality, because if they were to accept that objective reality exists, then it would hold them accountable as individuals, which is intolerable to the Marxist ideology.
2%?
2%, 2.4 to be exact. And social media, TikTok to be specific, in July of 22,
The mainstream media would never allow this to happen. Good on Dr. Phil.
week in America how to steal a Hyundai and a Kia because there was a defect in the steering column. So all these young kids were stealing these cars, but they knew that they're not going to jail for it. So just keep doing it.
Hard to imagine.
So all up rich.
It's completely beyond the pale to not arrest somebody for stealing a car. That is just, or not convict them, rather. That's just beyond belief. But again, the police are not at fault here. It is the administration that is overtly doing warfare with objective reality, because they're enraged that an objective truth exists. And to prosecute criminals is to admit that objective morality and objective order exist. So they are doing warfare with that. It's the same thing as doing warfare with truth.
Plate readers that read your plate.
Of course, you can't ultimately do warfare with truth, because you lose to reality. Obviously, what type of insane person would you have to be to think you could win versus reality? But this is the reason why New York is failing. It's the reason why Dr. Phil is doing this. It's proof of their loss.
And when one hits, the operations center will put it out that there's a car and it moves somewhere. This one's going into Brooklyn, so we'll let Brooklyn handle it. So we're going away from it, but the communication's really key to our success. The operations center we were just in, they're listening to us right now, and we're all talking on one frequency that we've had frequencies before, but this is dedicated just to us, and it's encrypted so people can hear us. So right now, one of the issues with our city council is they're upset that they can't listen to us, or the media can't listen to us, and we don't really apologize, because the bad guys listen to us too.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's completely crazy.
Some of our media, especially some of our print media, they want our administration to fail. They are anti-police. So they take glee in proving that we can't reduce crime, and we've been reducing crime. The bigger question to ask is, with record number of enforcement we have, and crime is coming down slowly, why isn't it coming down faster? That's the question.
There's no consequences.
That's a simple answer, right? No consequences.
The question isn't how do we fix the problem. It's ultra simple. It's the problem is that the left is doing war with reality, because they're ultimately enraged and resentful of coherent frameworks themselves.
Portions of our elected...
Understanding why that is the real interesting part. No one is debating that the way you fix crime is to enforce the law. That's what the police are doing. They're already doing it. But the left is enraged by that process.
And media don't understand. We've come to a point, the police in some way, shape, or form have become the bad guy.
I've studied this a fair amount, and what they're saying is the system has failed the bad guy, or he wouldn't be a bad guy. So the system has failed him, so we now have to try to make that up.
Right, there can be no individual accountability if the individual doesn't exist. That is stemming from Marxism. I'm not sure if Dr. Phil realizes that.
To him by not having consequences for his criminal conduct.
Right, because consequences is the same thing as oppression and tyranny if you don't accept that the individual identity exists, which Marxism denies.
Her criminal conduct. But that's not rendering them aid. That's not helping them. Let's say, for argument's sake, the system did fail them and force them into a life of crime. How does allowing them to continue that self-destructive behavior help them? That's not
when a leftist is called to take accountability, or when a person with a resentful proclivity is called to take accountability, they don't look at it as, I have an opportunity to grow here. They look at it as oppression, because they don't want to take on the burden of reality and accountability as an individual that could better themselves and then ultimately the world.
bring about change. The system's failing them again.
Right, and I think it's such a nice thing to see someone get a second chance and make it. It's a wonderful thing. But there comes a point in time where you have to realize that's not gonna work, and we gotta remove people off our streets that are hurting our community. But some people don't see it that way.
Even if someone...
Most people in the United States do see it that way, but this is, again, a crystallized epicenter of leftist degeneracy.
Is an addict, which I agree is a disease, or if someone is mentally ill, again, a disease.
But take them off the street, though, not release them.
I get that. Do they need help? Yes. But you still have to suppress their behavior before you render them aid. You have to protect innocent society from these bad actors, because if somebody stabs you in the neck...
And that's really where you see the potential evil of the left, where they are willing to sacrifice anything on the altar of their resentment and warfare with reality.
You don't really care why they did it. You're still stabbed in the neck.
Right.
Your life is ruined. We first have to suppress the behavior. Okay, now, if they need help, let's try and get them some help.
Sometimes when you're sitting at home and you're watching the news or op-eds on policing in New York City, I realize, wow, I really have a big play in this.
Yeah.
I think they're talking about me right now. Whether it be protests or just anything.
The left has proven time and time again they don't actually know what they are protesting against, because coherence is a system that is orthogonal to their mental capacities. In fact, even beginning to engage in coherence is signs of discrimination, oppression, and predatory behavior as far as they're concerned. I mean, we saw a degenerate woman literally say that starting a family and a mother having children was white supremacy. I released a video on that like 5 days ago or something like that. Go check it out.
Yeah, wait a minute, is that me they're talking
Yeah.
about? So what were they dogging on you about last night?
Over the weekends, before and during and quite frankly after the burial of our detective, some people just don't say the right thing and their timing is awful and they're cold and callous. We're certainly just not going to stand by when that happens. Just mean-spirited anti-police journalists, we just took it upon ourselves to push back, and it caused quite an uproar. And now we're saying, well, we have...
That always happens. When you resist them, you're doing more than disagreeing with them. You're calling them frauds. You're calling them fraudulent, because what you're saying is your entire mode of operation that brought you here is corrupted and destroyed. And since leftists, remember that since they can't engage in free speech, they don't believe in those mechanisms of objectivity like reason and rationality, they just demonize you because they can't debate, so they call you a bad person. When you disagree with leftists, they become ultimately enraged because they can't debate you. And what you're doing is you're saying, I see you for what you are. Your process for claiming virtue is counterfeit. They know it's counterfeit deep in their heart. But it's like admitting that every single thing you've done and thought for potentially in some cases years has been wrong and therefore immoral. And that's more than many leftists can bear. So when you resist them, like we saw the kicker from that NFL team, leftists became disproportionately enraged by that because he was willing to openly speak out the truth. They want to have a tyranny. They want to have a thought police enforced by cancellation, enforced by calling you a bad person. And when you step out against that, they become enraged and they will censor you. By the way, subscribe to the channel because we are heavily censored on YouTube. I upload on X as well. All my videos that I upload each day will be pinned to my profile so you can watch them easily on X or watch them here on YouTube. But follow and subscribe.
Feelings too, and we're going to protect our cops, and it's a two-way street now. And, you know, our mayor and our police commissioner backed this 1,000%, and that took them off guard too.
I saw what the mayor said about saying, hey, you know, feelings are raw right now and people are going to respond. They're humans.
Right.
And people forget that.
So we kind of got into it and they didn't like it, but we didn't back down. And again, we just keep fighting for that narrative. We're going to protect our cops and we're not going to apologize for it.
And to add on, like, you see those guys in the room. I think one of them said it, that we have an administration.
The left is being resisted. These cops have thought this for years, but no one's given them a platform. Could you imagine if Dr. Phil was having this conversation with police in New York in the middle of the BLM riots, the amount of difference that would do on the national scale? Bro, this would have 10 million views, but it wasn't allowed back then. Twitter wasn't free. Every single platform was censored, but now we have this. They have no choice but to engage with us, which again enrages them because they are required to engage in coherent frameworks using reason, logic, rationality, etc. Completely infuriating to them.
That's going to stick up for us, and we did.
Well, that's got to be so important for morale.
Yes.
For them to know that you've got their back, you're going to stick up for them.
Right. And when our cops make mistakes, some of them sound the same, but our team, we go by like, what was the intent of the cop?
If there's someone that's gotten through the cracks and they show a pattern of bad judgment or bad behavior,
Bro, they get kicked out so fast.
you guys aren't reluctant
We don't
to act.
we don't waste time. We remove him from the street because that's not good for anybody.
Right.
And we'll have instances where a cop is too aggressive and shouldn't have done what they did, and we have levels of discipline, and in some cases we might suspend you. Stores that shouldn't be selling marijuana and edibles and psychedelic mushrooms, it is out of control, and they expect us to fix it, but it's not that easy.
We don't have the authority to shut them down. We can go into a licensed premise and write a bunch of summonses for fruit flies and the alcohol. We can go into a deli, do an inspection. We can go into a barbershop and do an inspection. But we can't do an inspection in a smoke shop. It don't make no sense.
By the way, I'm not in favor of weed being legal. It's just degeneracy. I'm not in favor of degeneracy, open degeneracy that is purely for the purpose of degeneracy being legal like that. You can disagree with me, I don't care, but the reason why they're upset with police enforcing standards and codes on dispensaries is that those dispensaries were allowed in order to make the society less safe, more broken, and more degenerate. Look at the agenda these people have that are making the calls to let out criminals who steal cars 98% of the time. Clearly an agenda. They have an agenda to destroy the city. The cities are being destroyed, and that's why people are going to cities that will enforce the law.
Valentine before them, let's go.
Make it right. Watch this, make it right. They're going to Valentine. Follow them. They're going to go to Valentine. Cut up.
Guys, whoever's in the front, let's get to that location now.
Make it right here.
Make a right at this light.
See what we got here. All right.
All right, let's go. We're here,
Let's
guys.
see what we got.
The sergeant was chasing them. They grabbed this guy here. Let's see what they running for over here.
Who started this?
He's across the street.
So, the commanding officer of this precinct, of 46th precinct here, Phil Sinners, he's actually working. What is this? We're looking for a gun? Is that what they're doing?
That threw a bag, a black bag.
You do a black bag?
He's doing an evidence search right now.
Oh, we tossed it?
Yeah.
Jerry, come here. Hey, boss. This is Dr. Phil. I'm sure you know him. This is.
How you doing? How are you?
The print media, again, doesn't do us any favors when they sensationalize.
The media does not want people to feel safe. They want society to be in a constant state of chaos because order, again, is oppression.
Every single event. And it makes like, what's going on down there?
There are people that are so mentally ravaged and destroyed. They're the same communists and Marxists that became infuriated when they saw nuclear families succeeding. These are broken people. These are the same type. These are the feminists that write pieces in order to destroy the family. They are enraged by beauty, by love, by coherence. They are driven by a hatred for reality, also known as evil. Guys, be sure to subscribe to the channel. This was a super interesting video. I'm so glad Dr. Phil is doing battle with the forces of darkness here, because this is, you know, there's nothing in this video that was overtly political, but we can't ignore the fact that it is obviously political given the war with reality order laws that the left is waging and has been waging for the last several years here. They're aware of that. They created that, but it's infuriating to them. I'll see you guys in the next video.